So glad you're here, and congratulations to you, and so happy that
Hello, everyone. It is 6 o'clock, and we are ready to start. Thank you for coming. It is good to see you. We have a special guest tonight, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. Jennifer, could you say the prayer, please?
Yes. Dear Heavenly Father, we are thankful to be here tonight, God, to serve your community. We just ask that you give us good wisdom and knowledge, God, to make the best decision for the city of Houston. Amen.
Amen. Could I ask you to stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda is agenda approval. Is there a motion for agenda approval on the floor?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, JJ. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Dr. Sterling. All in favor of agenda approval? Thank you. At this time, I would like to, sorry, I didn't mean to be that loud. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Sterling. Dr. Sterling, if you could.
All right. Does that mic?
It works.
It does. Good evening. Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce to you Takara Aguilar. Takara is a recipient of the Houston Women's Club First Inaugural Scholarship. She will be attending University of Georgia in the fall, and we just wanted to recognize her at our city council meeting.
How about a picture with Mom as well, please? I know it looks like her sister, but it's the mom. It's beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Sterling. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go to reports. I'm going to start at my right. Dave, do you want to start?
Yes. I'll start off with the planning and zoning. Our planning, we've shifted a little bit, some gears, and what we've done is we've gone to all the department heads. We're working with the department heads to find out exactly, as our city grows, how they're going to grow with manpower, with equipment, with building space, parking space, and all that. And we're working from 2025, 2030, 2035. We're putting it on the same kind of Excel spreadsheets that we had before, where we look at the cost, look at where we're at in terms of if it generates any revenue, because a few of them do. And then what we're going to do is take it with the other Excel spreadsheets and kind of make like a sandwich where we stack them on top of each other, that will create a master spreadsheet that the mayor and city council in the future can look at and have an overall spread. And if the mayor would ask a question like, why are we off budget for this particular thing, when she hit on that tab, it would take her right to the area that we need to improve on or look at. So right now, we're still, I've told you repeatedly, we're in a gathering stage, and that's where we're at. But we're going to start working with Tiffany in the very near future, getting where the revenue stages are and get that going. So that's where we're at, Mayor.
Excellent, thank you. Jennifer?
This has been April was a busy month.
Mm-hmm.
If you see online, you see the mayor in a lot of my points. I have drug her along to a lot of meetings with me, and she has been a really good sport. One of the meetings that Mayor Martin, myself, and Chief Hill, gathered together, to meet with is with GDOT. If you remember a couple of months ago, a big concern was the speed limit in the downtown area. And we have met with them, and we are working on a solution, and we're excited about that. Mayor Martin and myself also, we were invited to the Ag Center. Well, actually the mayor, but I tagged along with her on this one. And she was honored to be a part of the Leadership Jackson and speak on Government Day. So that was really exciting for Houston. We also, at our last meeting, if you were here, you may remember that we, the mayor and council approved for the new tower to be constructed at Joe Pena, and we have had a pre-con since then, so we are excited to see that start taking place. We also had, the mayor and council also approved for the phase 1B, and that will be from Broad Street, which is where the garden is, the old Stansel building, and it will continue up 53 to the water tank at right across from the fire department. And so that will update our lines. Some of our lines are 70 years old, so it was really good to have that upgrade. Yes, so the city, myself, our city engineer, and we met with representatives for the Water First program from GFA. There were a couple of requests that they had asked. The city team is working on that request right now. We hope to have be in front of the panel for summer 2024. Oh, and if you don't know much about a Water First program, basically it's saying that we're in good conditions with our water audits and so forth, and it also, if you're in good graces with your water program, then they give you incentives as far as when you do loans, you have a decrease in your percentage of your interest. I will like to announce, and I just found out, so this is the first time the mayor and council is going to be able to hear this as well, but we have been working very hard to get a loan with GFA and going through that whole process for our sewer plant expansion, and we were just approved for $20 million through GFA, and I just got word this afternoon. So we are so excited about that, and now you're going to start seeing the expansion take place, and that is something that we all can be proud of.
Great. Any more?
I do have a few more. She's allowed me to talk some more, so I'm gonna continue to talk. Our building department, we had 793 inspections for the month of April, and a couple of commercial permits that were applied for and are in review was Kroger and Pasta Master, which is adjacent to this building. So we're very excited for both of these, the Kroger and for the restaurant to take place in Houston.
There's one more really important thing on the last line.
Mm-hmm, go ahead.
Public projects grand opening, November of this year.
Yes, so we're excited about that. Just to tell you how busy we are on the water side, we've installed 48 new water meters. And as I mentioned, we had our pre-con meeting with our Phase 1B and also with our South Water Tank. And wastewater, we are just focusing on that next expansion, which will take us to the .95. Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome. Tina, did you have anything? I don't have any. Okay. Dr. Sterling, I
Yes.
know you've had a very busy month as well.
I did. All right. April was a busy month in the city of Houston. On April 24th, the Women's Civic Club Scholarship Committee, which I am the chair, we interviewed 6 applicants from Jackson County High School. We chose Takara Aguilar as our winner. She is in the top 10 of her class, and she has received numerous other scholarships. In addition, on April 30th, I had the pleasure of attending Honors Night at Jackson County High School, and I presented Takara with the check from the Houston Women's Civic Club for $1,000. Another thing that I was able to do in the month of April was tour Empower College and Career Center with Mr. Usler. He was my guide. I was greatly impressed with all the innovative programs that they had available to students. He told me that he would be available to talk to anyone on the council or in the public who is interested in coming to visit. The majority of the students come from Jackson County High School and East Jackson Comprehensive High School to learn various skills that will help them in the world of work. So looking forward to working on a job fair that we would like to have here in the city of Houston coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sterling, that's excellent. Jan, did you have anything?
I think we're in good shape.
Okay. JJ, do you have anything?
I've got a brief update. I know that, everybody's anxious for the marketing, video for Houston to be released, and we should be able to release that at the end of this month. So it'd be, just really encompass our core values, really highlight small businesses across Houston, and no need for anybody to be concerned if y'all see a young man hanging out my, passenger side window with a camera, across town. No need to, be concerned. So that's my update, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, do you have anything?
Other than some training that I've been doing with the DDA, just got back from Athens, met with a couple other cities, looking at how we can get the DDA get going. There's some good things on the agenda that we'll see with the IGAs later on, so we're moving forward.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, folks, we are going to go to new business. Item number 1 is Resolution 2024-16. This is dedication of streets within Cambridge at Town Center to the city of Houston. Is there any questions, council, that you need to ask on this? It's pretty routine. Okay, then we're going to move on with that. We're going to go to new business, item number 2, which is the final plat for Crestwood at Twin Lakes Phase 5, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jerry White, our city planner. Dr. Jerry?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This subdivision, as the agenda indicates, is 169 lots, 62 acres. There are several private streets involved in this subdivision. As you know, Crestwind is all private streets. That was the way it was designed back in the early stages of approval. There is a dedication of a pump station that's involved in this, and the central issue I think we have is that staff recommends that the owner be obligated to pay the sewer lift station maintenance fee of some $200,000, depending on the horsepower of the motor, and that is something that they should pay before the city accepts the final plat. Otherwise, we've worked with the engineer on it, and there were maybe a few issues left, but by and large, the recommendation is to approve it with conditions. Yes.
All right, thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Dr. Jerry. Does the applicant have anything they would like to speak on?
Yes, in regards to the pump station, that's additional information I'd like to have you review. It's our opinion that the pump station is, was dedicated to.
Do you mind, I'm sorry, do you mind having the mic so that the public could hear you and the audience live on YouTube is watching you? And your name, if you don't mind, so we all know.
Dustin Baker with Coulter Homes. So that's some additional information regarding lift station number 3. We believe it was, dedicated and accepted by the city as part of that phase 3 final plat, and that information goes to back that position. What we're asking y'all to do that, consider that.
Okay.
And I can speak to any questions on specific information. There's a copy of the final plat in there that shows the signature line, excuse me, where the easements, everything within the easements are accepted by the city mayor and the city manager. There's the pump station startup document that says it started up for the city of Houston, and all of that happened in 2022. Also, Georgia Power shows that the meter that services that pump station was put into service in May of 22 to the city of Houston. So it's our position that pump station's already been dedicated.
Okay. Without reading it, obviously, I don't have any questions right out of the gate. Dr. Weiss, do you have any questions based on what you just received, or do we just need to take some time to review it? Also, counsel, do you have any questions?
How many more pump stations are gonna be required in the future development from this point forward? If you're
Two more.
saying this one's already online?
2 more.
2 more.
Did you hear that? 2 more pump stations.
The other side has already, I think they've already dedicated all theirs. On the Crestwood side, we have 2 more to go. There'll be 5 total in there. The one that was in final plat number 3 was lift station number 3.
But you're saying this one was already dedicated into the final plat?
We believe so, yes.
Did you say 2 more on the Crestwood side?
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that what you said? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And they're in see, one's in phase 6 and one's in phase 7, which those, plans are in for review now.
Mayor, I will have questions as always, as I generally do. But I'd like a couple days to study this first and look at it, so I can come up with some questions.
Sure.
So is there an opportunity after we study it to talk back with you about this?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to item number 3. This is preliminary plat for Aberdeen, also, Aberdeen PUD. I'm also gonna turn this over to, Dr. Jerry White.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I do have a presentation on this item, given a number of issues have been raised about it, so I'd like to just jump right into that. Council may not be that familiar with the process of reviewing and approving a preliminary plat, but you have the opportunity to, the duty to approve it or act on a preliminary plat. You do not have to convene a public hearing on the matter, but it does anticipate that you can call on the applicant as well as the staff to present information. So we would fully expect that you would recognize the applicant as soon as I'm done with this, or as soon as you have finished with questions with me. On this first, if you go to that first slide there, process. Okay, yeah, thanks. The council is required to approve, conditionally approve, or deny the plat within 35 days, calendar days from the date it first considers the application. And by the way, this process is going to change now that you have a planning commission. A planning commission will have a role in these preliminary plats, but for this one, they had already filed it before a planning commission, so they didn't have to go to the planning commission. So if you go to the next one, the decision criteria, the only basis for approval or disapproval is whether the plat meets the purposes and requirements of the ordinances, especially the subdivision ordinance, and also whether it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Next slide. Also, I think it's important to distinguish between what is a preliminary plat and a zoning plan. When someone submits a plan for zoning, That is not exhaustively reviewed by planning staff for compliance with each and every condition or provision of the subdivision code, zoning ordinance, et cetera. It's a conceptual plan, and so it's not intended or required to meet every single code provision, and it's not reviewed that way. It's only when you get to a preliminary plat stage, such as now, that a detailed review for compliance is completed. Prior submissions may have implied some sort of inconsistency with regulations that were not noted by the consulting planner in reviewing it. If you look at the approval of the PUD, that in itself is not an entitlement, at least with respect to the design of the subdivision. The way it's designed, the physical layout is still subsequent. It's still subject to the subsequent step in the process, meaning the preliminary plat and development plan approval that must be completed. Next slide. My recommendation on this matter is that you deny the application for private streets. I recommend an interconnecting public street. The plat shows an interconnecting street, but it proposes that it will be private and gated. Now, I'm going to go into that issue some more, but I want you to know what the initial recommendation is. The proposed through street, public street, would allow for some percentage of traffic to get back and forth from East Jefferson Maddox Road to 332 east of Town Center Parkway without using State Route 53 or New Street, and therefore it provides some relief to travelers in the city who would otherwise have to use State Route 53, or they would be cutting through our other city streets, New Street in particular, which is not set up to handle any additional traffic. It's substandard with regard to right-of-way, pavement width, drainage, shoulders, etc. Other recommendation is that you postpone the action and when you come to voting session on May 21st and ask the applicant to redesign the plat to make certain improvements of it. There are alternatives in my report that I want to go over at the end that you can consider as well. Next slide. Okay, concerns that I have still about this project is that they're really, we've sort of been handicapped to begin with because of the way this property has been parceled out by the owner, Shannon Sell. As you know, we're dealing with only part of the property, not all of the property, and so we're unable to look realistically and holistically about what are the overall needs for traffic access and so forth. And there is a provision in the code, section 604, which I'm going to mention below, that I don't feel like this application is consistent with. There are some negative impacts of private streets. I'm going to go into that. The impact of the project on the surrounding road network is a concern. As I mentioned before, New Street is not built to standards. This project will generate 3,150 new vehicle trips per day. Those are going to go onto our road network. The road proposals that they have also have concerns about. They've got dead-end alleys that are proposed, dead-end streets that are not necessarily in the public interest, and they may present some issues. Next slide is the issue of private streets. The condition of zoning approval requires that there be a street interconnecting East Jefferson and Maddox Road with Pendergrass Road. That much is clear. At issue is whether the street should be allowed to be gated as proposed by the applicant, or whether the street should be required to be a public through street as recommended by the consulting planner. In other words, no gates, not private streets. Next slide. This one I'm going to skip over section 604, but just to show you that this is a provision of the code that is designed to allow us to make better decisions about subdivision proposals, and that is to consider the entire tract in question. In this case, we're looking at the portion of the cell tract that the Providence Group wants to purchase, not the rest of the cell property. So we don't have a full and complete picture of the development. It's just not available, and without it, we're trying to make the wisest decision as we can, without with regard to having future road network. Next slide shows a little bit of what I'm talking about. If you'll go back to the survey for a minute. This just goes to show you that there's other pieces to the cell tract that are not included in the preliminary plat application by the Providence Group. Next slide. We're required to look at all aspects of the subdivision code, including purposes. I'm not going to read each one of these, but this goes to show you that there's very much a public interest in how streets are laid out in the city. There's many public interests in doing that: convenience, adequate circulation, consistency with the comprehensive plan, interconnectivity, and so forth. Next slide. As you know, the consulting planner, myself, proposed corridor map proposals. I wanted to remind the council of this. The one at the top is what we call the West Jackson Road extension. That's the one in particular that would go through this property if you were to agree with the city planner that a public road is needed. Indeed, they've already got one that goes through there, but it's a private street, and so it has fewer benefits. The one on the lower end, which we called part of it, was the cell connector. This was not a planning staff recommendation. This manifested itself because of the owner, Shannon Sell. It was basically his idea in the hopes that an alternative to the other road, if we had one, that would help get his project, get the Providence Group's project through, and then he would be able to sell the land as intended. This map was not adopted. The council did express some interest in possibly revisiting it in the future, but the council voted on this and did not voted in a corridor map concept with some other maps, but did not approve this one. But it's part of the, it's still relevant to the plan. Other findings, then go to the next one. Unless the road is public that goes through there, then residents outside the project can obviously, they cannot share in the same convenience of access that a through street would provide. Private streets, now here's the central argument where the applicant argues one thing and planner argues another, and that is that they believe that because the zoning had reference to private streets, that they are entitled to private streets, that clearly and unequivocally gave them the right to private streets, and my argument is twofold otherwise. One, there's a lot of ambiguity in terms of the way those conditions were written about public streets. In many cases they say the street will or shall be private unless otherwise approved by the city council. It did not finish the sentence, so to speak, but if you go to the subdivision code, it specifically says, and I'm quoting here, and it's in bold language here, approval shall be sought and obtained as part of the preliminary plat approval for a private street. So my argument is, despite what they felt like they gained and are vested to, the code is very clear that approval is only officially given when you do a preliminary plat, and that's where we are today. So my argument is that they do not have the approval, they're not entitled to do private streets. Going on to the next slide. Our purposes of the subdivision code are not met with a private street that's gated because you restrict access only to the residents and not to non-residents. Private streets are not always in the public interest. The use of private street requires the city council to approve it as part of the preliminary plat process, not the zoning process. Construction of private streets proposed in the PUD is not a right or an entitlement. Next slide. I also want to mention this, the council, most of the council, maybe new ones, have not seen this, but part of the reason that I think this issue is important is because there used to be a road called E.G. Barnett Road that went through the Shannon Cell property. And for his own good reasons, Mr. Sell advocated, because he had dumping and so forth, people going in and basically trespassing on his property. He had good reason for not wanting people to be in there. And so he asked the Board of Commissioners to abandon that part of the road. And the city council, I was a planner for the city at that time, and I wrote a letter, and that letter's part of your record. The Houston City Council in 2016 unanimously agreed with the position that that was a through road that needed to be there for future access. And so they, the city council at that time unanimously recommended against to the board, asked the board not to abandon the road. The Board of Commissioners abandoned it anyway. But that's important history, number one, because it's been 8 years, and this, the position of planning staff has not changed. In fact, it's not like we came up with it here because of the here and now with this developer. Back in 2016, we said the same thing. This is an important piece of property where we need to have through access, and if we don't, we're pushing everybody around it, and that's going to cost the city ultimately with road improvements and so forth. You make it a lot longer route, too. If you look at emergency access facilities, and as you probably know, the county EMS, Emergency Medical Services, their building is over there on 124, and they can use 53, but they're also pretty close to Maddox Road, and Maddox Road is a way for them to get in here. And if they have to go around this development to get to 332, it's 3 times as long to go around than it would be if you were able, at least under the old E.G. Barnett. Now, that's gone, and we won't get that back, but something similar, in my opinion, is really important to public safety, public convenience, purposes of the regs and so forth. Okay, I'm going to go a little faster now on these others, but really the report goes into detail about different comprehensive plan policies. As you remember, the basis of approving this plat is whether it meets the code and the comprehensive plan policies. And so there's a number of policies where, in my opinion, we are not meeting them with this plat. One is infrastructure readiness, and I'm just going to move on from there. That's one that's cited. It's in the record going on. Comprehensive plan continued, yeah. I've already really made these points, so I'll move on. But another one, the connectivity. There is a specific policy that indicates roadways should connect at both termini with the existing road network. And so that a public road network is what this means. And so street stubs do not meet this, do not meet the intent here. Finally, I'm almost done. There's another one on context sensitivity, and here is where I make the argument that the applicant does not agree with me on this, apparently, but a collector street through the neighborhood that had facilities like tree-lined boulevard appearance, multimodal facilities with a multi-use path, things of that nature could be an asset to the neighborhood, not a liability, in my opinion. The applicant disagrees with this. A few more. Also, I thought it instructive to know that when we had the group from the University of Georgia, I guess it was Carl Vinson Institute, or was it the design group there? They came and they did a charrette. They call them a charrette for the city. And I found it interesting to note that they too saw the need to connect. Here, in this case, it's green lines through the cell track that show pedestrian access, but they basically found observations the same, and they haven't spent years and years here. They came in for a couple of weeks, hours, and made that observation. Houston subdivisions are fragmented with no internal connection. all residential roads lead back to Highway 53. They understood what we were dealing with. They wanted us to create a multimodal trail network using secondary roadways. Well, those secondary roadways have to be built by somebody, whether it's the city or an applicant. The proposal for through streets is generally consistent with these recommendations. So I'll go to the last slide, and that's my alternatives that I've pointed out to you on this. The first one is you can approve the design exactly the way the applicant requests it and give them the private streets. That's not my recommendation. Alternative 2, you could approve the design but disapprove the request for private streets. That in itself would give us a public street designed to connect the two, and fundamentally, I want to point out that meets the basics of what I'm saying that we need. It's not a collector street designed with tree-lined boulevard, but it does fundamentally meet most of the objectives. Now, whether it's sized appropriately or not, I think that that's a different story. And then the third alternative is to ask, well, in our alternative 2, the question would be, does the applicant, they want private streets, period, so they're not inclined to like alternative 2 either. Alternative 3 is redesign the subdivision with one public through street built to a collector street standard and have private streets come off the main road. We don't have an issue with private streets per se. I have an issue when you want to make it all private and you want to completely prohibit public access from going through the subdivision. So my thought, and I shared this early on with the applicant, they apparently still don't like that idea, but there could be a public road through there and the gates could still come off other parts of this road. They could still have most or all of the lots as gated communities, and still it's just a matter of the way it's designed. So in conclusion, number 3 is the best in my opinion. Number 2 is acceptable but not recommended, and maybe it's not acceptable to the applicant. Number 1 is not recommended. If you approve it, there's 24 conditions of approval recommended in the staff report. And I'll conclude with that and answer questions that you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Whites. First, I want to ask if the applicant or property owner wants to come up and speak to council.
Good evening. Is this thing working? I'm Clint Walters with the Providence Group.
Hold on one second, Clint. There you go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Clint Walters with the Providence Group. Speaking on behalf of Warren Jolly and our company tonight. Sorry you couldn't be here. Simply put, we just want to do what we've intended to do since day one. Our letter of intent has always proposed gated neighborhood and private streets. This is the type of neighborhood our company is known for. We've built many of them over the years. As Gary said, he did discuss having multiple access points, and we went and obtained the cheap property to include the multiple access points. We do believe the zoning for the property allows private streets, and requiring public street changes the character and value of the neighborhood and would require many changes that present some liabilities. Zoning condition number 1 states that development shall be in substantial accordance with the letter of intent and community benefit statement. I'm summarizing a little bit here. Development shall be in substantial accordance with the site plan, provided, however, that modifications to the site plan may be proposed by the applicant and approved by the city council as part of the preliminary plat approval, as long as they did not change the condition of zoning approval. In this case, we've proposed private streets since day one. That's still what we're asking for. We are not asking for a modification, because condition one gives us the right to do. See, skipping here, make sure I'm not skipping around too much here, I don't speak in public that often.
You're doing fine.
So, next, when a property is zoned, the approved ordinance and conditions become the law for the property. It supersedes the comprehensive plan, which is just a guide. After an approved zoning, staff should not use the comprehensive plan, in our opinion, as grounds to recommend disapproval of the preliminary plat. The preliminary plat should be a procedural tool to assure that zoning codes are being followed. It should not be used as a weapon to modify rezoning conditions. Next, I'll skip down to the alternatives provided by staff. Number one would be the one we propose to be approved, and we respectfully request that. Like I said, we've been clear since the beginning, we plan on building a high-quality lifestyle community located around the streets. Number two, I believe planning staff covered that one as well. Number three, redesign the subdivision having one public through street with the collector standards. Now, I don't know that that's an option, because I believe that would send us back to the full rezoning, to go back to rezoning condition number one. With that, I would like to respectfully request that y'all approve alternative one and approve our final plat, or preliminary plat, excuse me. I do have a set of red line conditions I can pass out that we can discuss over the coming days. And, we have those already. We are happy to keep working with you and look forward to your time.
Are these new red lines, Clint?
Yes, they were supposed to be emailed over earlier today, but the person emailing them sent the wrong documents, so I've got some copies on hand down there.
Yeah, if you don't mind passing that to, Terry, do you have them yet, or no? Yeah, if you don't mind passing them to us, and, we can discuss afterwards. While Clint's doing that, I'm gonna ask council if you had questions, for either Clint or Dr. White.
Mayor, I have a few questions for Clint, if I may.
Sure.
Oh, well, let's wait till he's done that.
Hi, I have a few questions. Number one, whether the road's public or private at this point. I understand you're gonna build your community in phases. And it's my understanding that the first phase would include the road, a road off of Pendergrass, and build that phase, and then it would go halfway through your development. At the same time, you would be building the roundabout? Is that correct?
That's correct. We would start on the eastern end, on the Highway Pendergrass Road side.
Mm-hmm.
All the sewer goes there, we have to build a pump station, and that's where our phase one would be. I would call it, and then I would call the West Jackson LLC property next door to the school, I would call that phase 1B.
Okay.
We'll build those basically simultaneously, we have to do sewer from the bottom to the top.
Okay.
In that phase one, we will build the roundabout and do the East Jefferson.
Okay. So my question comes in, the economy has been turning down a little bit over the last couple years. What kind of guarantee, or what are you putting in to make sure whatever that road is finishes out to match up to the roundabout?
Well, I don't know that I can make that guarantee, but what I can tell you is Providence Group, is part of Greenbrier Partners, which is a publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange company, so we don't borrow money, we don't have, local debt, and the banks are not running our business, so we will build through the subdivision.
So that will be an escrow or something like that?
No, it won't be, I wouldn't describe it as escrow, we're building and a builder finance company, our partner, so there's no bank to take it back, there's nothing, we own the property, we've got to finish the project.
Okay. Then the next question that I have is, on the opposite side where you're originally were going to, you called that section townhomes. there's one entrance, period. From, earlier you talked about a safety standpoint and all that. Would it not have a better design to have one entrance and one exit, or from a fire standpoint, police standpoint, and so forth?
I think one entrance and exit is plenty for 80 units, whatever is out there.
Is that the standard, excuse me, Dave, do you mind?
Please.
Is that what your other properties have?
I mean, it has on different standards and and a lot of different things, but it's not uncommon for a subdivision that's not on the water.
It's more typical? We used to have an ordinance in the city that had 50. And now we're talking about 88 units, I think you said?
Yes.
And one way in, one way out with gates? And what about emergency situations? Because there's some fire laws, and I can give you guys, we can take this offline, I can show it to you when we're done. There's some international laws and stuff that they talk about, or codes that they talk about being over 30. Yeah, please, I want to learn too.
There are laws, there are fire
Yeah.
regulations throughout the country. Some people have adopted various, I don't think this mic is working. Some people have adopted various, pieces of that legislation. It's not a national coverage, and every state has to adopt it, and every jurisdiction has to adopt it. But there's very few jurisdictions in the state of Georgia using the 30-unit number right now for one entry. In fact, for the last 30 years, I've never had a project where I had more than one entrance on 50 to 80 units. So it's the norm, not the other way around.
Any other questions, council?
I think I have a couple. You said the purpose of plat approval was basically perfunctory. It wasn't really anything, but one thing you did say was it was to ensure compliance with zoning code, that the zoning code was adhered to, and I think Dr. White's made several points using subdivision zoning code that do bring into question whether your preliminary plat complies with that. So I guess that's a statement. You said that you've been clear since the beginning you wanted fully private streets. Also, the council has been clear from the beginning that we needed a public through street. Now, the conditions got changed at the last minute because, as I understand it, there was a proposal for the cell connector that was going to accomplish that. But then that also got voted down. So we don't have what we were asking for from the beginning, which is a community benefit. And speaking of community benefit, I did not see that community benefit statement in the letter of intent. So I'm just wondering why you're resistant to giving the community and Aberdeen residents themselves better police response and fire response times, better access. They'll have better egress if we give a public through street so they can avoid this East Jackson-Maddox issue, which is sort of infamous right now. It just seems like it would benefit your future residents as well as the city at large and be a community benefit. So the resistance to working with the council is a very big concern of mine. So I guess I do have a question here. Is it possible for the plat to be redesigned in such a way that there is a public road more on the periphery rather than cutting through the center, so that you could still have a fully gated community and offer that to your residents, but yet allow them to have the benefit of better egress and better public safety? Is it a possibility to have that redesigned in such a way? I don't understand the resistance.
I believe the answer to that is that it is not a possibility because it would require us to go back through a zoning approval because we're zoning to a site plan with conditions, and that would constitute taking of property.
Is it a taking if you still get 334 lots? Is it a taking if you simply made a private road public? How is that a taking?
It changes the value of things.
So it's about the money.
Changes.
Are you concerned about the community?
The Providence Group historically was built, gated private road maker. That's what we've done all over North Atlanta. That's what we're known for. That's what we drive President Rice doing. And that's been our intention to do just that here all along.
Perhaps in your other locations, there has been better connectivity on public streets, and so it wasn't such an issue, but here in Houston, it is. And we would like, perhaps your native son, who wants the best interest of Houston, can help broker this deal.
Let me try to answer that. With all due respect to your question, the city of Houston is obviously a lot different than every other jurisdiction we've ever done business with in Metro Atlanta. So we have never been in a situation where we've made an application, clearly stated what we wanted to do. In this case, it's even easier because we have dozens of subdivisions that we've built and demonstrated what we do as examples of what we do. We went through a public hearing and we had a city council approve our plan with a set of zoning conditions. Okay? We had a plan that we showed you what we wanted to do with a set of zoning conditions that spelled out what we wanted to do. Everything we have always told you folks from day one is exactly what we have on our plan. It's exactly what we asked for. You had the ability, back in that city council meeting, to simply say, folks, we're not interested in this project, we don't want to approve this project, and you could have done that. That was the whole reason we had a city council meeting. We, quite honestly, we've never been in a situation before where we went through a city council meeting, got approved with a set of plans. It did not change from day one, with a set of zoning conditions that supported it. So we have never been in a debate with you folks or anybody else about the main drag running through our subdivision being a public road. It's never been a discussion. Now, at one point, once through this, after the fact, we discussed, or even at the very end, prior to the zoning hearing, Jerry brought up the point of bringing up, talking about additional roads, possibly, that you just pointed out, that would come on the outskirts of our property. And we agreed that we would donate the property for the right-of-way to build that future road. We do not control all of the property to go ahead and donate all the property and design a road and go that far along. We don't even have the ability if we wanted to. So we have done everything to the T, exactly what we've told everybody in this room and everybody that's ever sat in the hearing. What we wanted, what we asked for, what we would do, we've stuck to that. Nothing has changed. We have never been in a situation where we're talking about preliminary plat approval, which in my mind, and I guess we'll find out at some point in the future, how this really works, is a process to overturn a zoning, an approved zoning plan. Never heard of it, never seen it. Maybe you guys are gonna show me that's how it really works, and we don't have a clue what we're doing. But we've been doing this an awful long time. And again, we tried to do this in the right manner and treat everybody respectfully. We do care about the community, and that's one of the reasons we're here. We think we've got a great product and a great community, and that's all hopefully I answered your question, but a lot of the things we're talking about here should not be being talked about because we have an approved plan. So we're talking about things we shouldn't be talking about at this point in time. Thank you.
With all due respect, you have an approved development plan, but this is in fact to discuss the plat approval. And as Dr. White's pointed out, it is appropriate during this time to compare the preliminary plat with code. And I heard several concerns with that coming out of that comparison. It is also, this never been a discussion, and coming up at the end, in the initial conditions, it was there and it was discussed, obviously, because it was removed. Our intent was clear as well.
Any other questions for from council?
I have one. When you were talking before, like, Councilman Brown brought up the idea you're gonna do this side and that side, and how long before you think they actually connect? If private or public, it doesn't, I'm not asking that, is it a 3-year, 4-year project?
Yes, sir, we would anticipate it to be about
3 years and they'll pretty much be built out?
The full build-out will take longer than that with all the houses, but from a road construction.
From connection, okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I have one. I see we got 1.8 miles of road if we do a connecting street between 332 and Maddox Road. Does anybody have an idea what this would cost, whether we paid for it as a city or the developer paid for it?
I have not done that math. Because we will look into that, but it will also depend on the specifications. But we can do some math on that and let you know as we discuss that in a couple of days.
Because if it's a dollar issue, I can tell you, gate it, close it off. That way we don't have to maintain the streets, and we definitely don't have to keep the upkeep of the thoroughfare that's going to be going through there. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, let's move on. Thank you, Clint, appreciate it. Okay, item number 4, this is a preliminary plat for Tribute, PUD. Dr. Jerry, can I turn that over to you as well?
Sure, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a presentation on this one also, but I expect to be a little bit more brief on this one, because we don't need to cover the same thing twice. If you go to the next slide on the description of this property, I'm gonna skip that one. Yeah, here we go. Site description. This is, I think all of you know this property pretty well already, but it's 287 acres on the east side of State Route 53. It's east of Twin Lakes Plan Unit Development. All of the access is onto 53. The eastern boundary is formed by Indian Creek, and you can see it in the map there. There's quite a bit of floodplain along that side. There's a lake or a pond on the site. There's 4 homes. There's a church and a cemetery that's part of the was part of the annexation. This property also sits up against Sells Mill Park, a county park. Next slide. There's a lot of planning project history in here, but and it's not all that important at this point, but I wanted to make a note that it was annexed back in September of 2023 with 21 conditions. This was a contentious project, and the county objected to the annexation, and ultimately it went to an arbitration panel, which deliberated and imposed a condition of approval requiring the county, that the county would receive development impact fees, that the city would collect those on behalf of the county. That's in addition to city impact fees. There also was a development of regional impact on it. Next slide. This is the overall plan from the annexation zoning application. It started out as 1,055 lots. Repeat, 1,055 lots. This is a big subdivision. Now it's down to 1,051. 400 of them are fee simple townhouses. The rest are detached single family. There are a few out parcels on the site for retail, restaurant, office use. totaling an estimated 40,000 square feet. The applicant has agreed to dedicate a sizable amount of land as part of this to mitigate certain impacts, 23.65 acres. And then the open space, like all PUDs, is required to be 20%. They're exceeding that. I don't remember the exact number. I think maybe it's closer to 29%. Next slide. I've already covered this, but again, the basis, we're covering, you know, we go by the book here, okay? The subdivision code does talk about a comprehensive plan, does ask us to evaluate it for consistency of the project, and that you have to meet the code. So, no sense in dwelling on that point. Major issues on this one, next slide, yeah, there you go. Public facility impacts, there's a lot in the report, and there was a lot in the rezoning report about public facility impacts. When you have 1,051 dwelling units, that's an estimated increase in city resident population of 2,650 people, plus a sizable employment increase depending on what we see on the site that's reserved for school or other purpose. We don't have the sewer capacity right now, but as everyone knows, the city negotiated a water and sewer agreement with Rockland Homes, and the proposal, the requirement is basically that they've agreed to pay $6.33 million for improvements to the sewage treatment plant for the project. And it requires the developer to do many different capital improvements, including the land dedications plus road improvements along 53. Important to note here about the future land uses, there is a site here it's got a 16-acre site that is to be dedicated to the city. All along, the applicant did that with the understanding that that would be one effort to mitigate the school impacts, and that property, the 16 acres, would ultimately be expected to go to the Jackson County Board of Education. But it's not a guarantee. In other words, the city reserved for itself the right to decide what the future use of that 16 acres is. And by the way, that 16 acres is pretty important in terms of how you look at the traffic and everything about all the facilities and so forth. They did propose to use the state route as a right-of-way for water lines. I'm trying to remember now whether, Jennifer, you remember, did we get that squared away? I think that where we've left at is that the water and sewer agreement allows them to do it if they have to as a last resort, and then they would have to bond or basically guarantee us if they put water lines in the state right-of-way. We don't know that road will be widened or not, but if it is, then you're in for a lot of money to relocate any water line or any any utilities that go in the right-of-way of the state. The state will require us to pay for that. Excuse me. The phasing of the project is a little bit of a concern. I have not said anything in detail about that, but the basic proposal is that the townhouse project, part of it, will be built first, and then the single-family detached will be built as a phase 2. Also, we wonder or worry a little bit, well, really a lot, about institutional investors coming in if this gets developed, and then, for example, what happens what do we do to prevent, if we can, the applicant building the roads and final platting the townhouse part, 400 units, and then turning around and selling it to an institutional investor, which has no intent to offer home ownership, and all of the units become rental properties. And then what else might happen is if you do that, and then the economy You know, if we witness a recession, a great recession like 2008, or a pandemic like 2020, we might see part of this project and never see the rest of it, or not see it for years and years and years. These are things that we worry about in planning and administration. Moving on to access, like the Aberdeen project, we need to consider with a project that's going to add 1,000 units and 2,600 people. That's a lot of cars. There's a lot of traffic in this. And ultimately, if all of this dumps out on State Route 53 like it's going to do, how much worse is that going to make the quality of life in the city of Houston? We made that decision. The project is approved. It's the only access. However, as a city planner, I've tried to push this applicant as hard as I could to at least provide a way through this development, and they have done that. There is a condition in the approval of zoning that they have a road that goes from 53 to the property line. That was intentional. That was my request, because the idea is that we need to be able to ultimately channel some traffic some other direction than 53. And the idea was that maybe as other properties develop, there's an opportunity to do a bypass of sorts, or maybe it's not a highway, but it's a through road that gets us to Jackson Trail Road, that then gets us to State Route 332, that then gets us through Sam Freeman Road up to 124, and then from there it gets us to the interchange that's been planned since 2008 for an interchange at State Route 60 and 85. So again, not just Aberdeen, but this project, even though it doesn't have opportunities, at least there's the opportunity to put a through road there and an 80-foot right-of-way, and I believe the applicant they had that shown as I've requested, all but the last little bit where it was 50, and I think, talking to them on the phone, I think they can address this tonight if they want, but I think they're agreeable to make that last bit an 80-foot right-of-way, and then at least we've done what we can. Okay, we can't make them connect. There is nothing to connect to, but at least we've not foreclosed the opportunity to have some kind of traffic relief to 53. So that's the idea, and I actually applaud the applicants for working with planning staff in that regard. They weren't super happy about it, but so far they've basically agreed to do almost all of it. So with that said, I'm going to skip over to transportation impacts and briefly point out we already have issues with Bill Watkins Road and Jackson Trail Road, the intersections there. We've got 5-minute delays in some cases trying to get out of those roads at peak hours. Not a lot we can do about that. The applicant has proposed road improvements. They've proposed signalization, and we're addressing that as much as we can. School impacts, and again, all of this is part of the job that we do by evaluating a preliminary plat. Even if it's been zoned, a preliminary plat needs to be reviewed for consistency with plan policies and the code, and so we're pointing out the school impacts are very big. My estimate myself was that it would be 558 students created by this development alone. At a class size of 20 students, that's 28 more classrooms. If you figure out the square foot, that's 28,000 square feet of building space. And then the estimated cost impact on that is, in my estimation, is $7 million, probably a lot more than that. That doesn't include operation and maintenance costs. So it is a big impact, and you can see why the applicant felt obligated to dedicate some land which might be a school site. It's a little too small for a school site, but they've nevertheless. And public safety impacts, the applicant has proposed, a dedication of land for fire, EMS, and police. I think it's 3 some odd acres. And so, that's partially mitigated, but the council going forward, you're gonna have to expect on this project that your budget, your operating budgets are gonna go up as this gets built, just like with Twin Lakes, just like with any other one. The estimated demand for police alone in this project is 5 police officers alone. Okay, next one, Park and Rec, we're good there. They're gonna pay impact fees. For the city, they also are required under the annexation arbitration panel to pay county impact fees, including park and recreation, plus they have a lot of open space, plus they are proposing to do a number of significant public improvements by way of parkland, like civic space, quite a bit of things. So they're in essence, they score the best with Park and Rec. Finally, water and sewer, I think I've mentioned this already, the $6.3 million that they're paying for that. We've got to upgrade the plant to be consistent with that. I mentioned the question about phasing. That's the next slide. I've already mentioned that. I mentioned the dedications, substantial dedication of land, 23 acres. Mentioned the next one, the phasing point, and then final points. Just so you know, these guys did not get off easy with me. The first set of plan comments was 84 comments, okay? And then we spent an hour and a half going over it in a Zoom conference to make sure that the engineers could address everything. And again, I appreciate the effort, the level of effort that the engineers have done on this, because, and the applicant for that matter, because they haven't told them, hey, don't agree to these conditions. They've told them, do everything within reason that you can do, and they've done that. So then we were down to the last review, 32 comments. They have already brought that back. I haven't even taken a look at it yet, but they've already addressed that, I think, 90 to 100% satisfaction, and they've already turned it back in. So they're doing, I mean, again, I'm crediting them for doing pretty much everything that we've asked them to do. And you probably know I was not a fan of this project to begin with. I didn't recommend approval on the basis of it being inconsistent with the land use plan and the inability to mitigate all of the project impacts. But yet it's been approved, and we make the best project possible, and I think they've done a pretty good job, a good enough job to recommend approval. And I expect between now and the 21st, we will be able to get that list of 32 comments down to either 0 or 4 or something that's quite reasonable. So the recommendation is basically approval, and we'll, before the 21st, we'd like to be able to amend this report to give you a smaller list of recommended conditions. That's all I have. Thank you for your indulgence. I know that's a long presentation.
It's a great summary. It's good. Thank you.
This project is gigantic. It has many
Should not be taken lightly.
implications. It's really worth you spending a few minutes hearing about.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Does the applicant want to speak?
If you have questions, if you don't, we're good.
Council?
We agree with everything that Jerry has presented. We agree with the 80-foot right-of-way too, Jerry. I think that was the only open item. Thank you. If you have any other questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Council, any questions?
Thank you.
Jerry, I think moving forward, and this is something I want to bring up to the council also, a lot of this is speculation as far as where roads should go, where roads shouldn't go. At some point in time, and it hadn't been done yet, and I know a couple of people have asked for it, is a engineered traffic study of our whole city limits,
Actually,
of what we're in control of.
let me address that if you don't mind.
Okay?
We have discussed it, and we didn't have the budget this year, and it's definitely going in the budget for next year. And we've already talked to Gainesville Hall, Metropolitan Organization about it, so.
Well, I think it's just important that we have something to go by before putting any type of encumbrances on people's property. That's my concern.
Yeah, one response to that, Mayor, is the good news I would add is that the Jackson County has a long-range transportation plan. It was done in 2019. I don't know why we're a year ahead of their planning, but their planning is being done next year, and they are hiring another firm, or maybe the same firm, to come back and update their countywide transportation plan. So that, I think that's closely equivalent to what Mr. Lawson's asking for, is that it really is in the works, and with a lot of input in that process, we can make sure that they address our concerns. But there will be something on the horizon within the next year that begins to address that. It's later than we want, but we'll have it.
Thank you, Jerry. Was there comments or questions for the applicant?
I have a couple questions for the applicant and for Jerry. I guess while they're walking up there, one of the questions for Jerry is, you mentioned about the water and sewer lines going parallel with 53. Is there a way that we can move the water lines and sewer lines far enough away from 53 so if they do widen it, we're not exposed?
Yeah, and I'll let the applicant address that, but the discussion was that our engineer has been clear from the beginning that we don't want them to use State Route 53 as the path for a trunk water line or trunk sewer line. They've gone the effort to find a path with city assistance to get the sewer force main out of the right-of-way, and now it's a matter of what they're left with is the water line, and what we've discussed is they're doing everything that they can to try and make it fit over on the Twin Lakes side, outside the right-of-way. And I don't know the final outcome of that. I may not be up to date with everything. They may have solved it, or at least they're trying to solve it. I defer to the applicant.
Okay. And does it look favorable, or?
Yet to be determined.
So not too favorable, okay.
Our engineer can really good speak to that, we have issues tonight, so we certainly want to work with Jerry and do that.
Okay, and do you have an estimate when you might be able to tell us that, yeah, it looks really good, or?
I mean, we hope to have the land disturbance program within the next 3 or 4 months, so certainly within that period of time, we'll know.
Okay.
Excuse me, for the people at home, could you all use the mic, please? Thank you. Thank you.
The other question is, we were talking a lot about traffic on 53. I'm assuming that there's a traffic light going somewhere.
I believe that if GDOT allows for it to be done, we proposed it, and our engineer did as well, but GDOT is the one that has to approve that.
And in terms of paying for it, is that on your side?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And my final question is, the phasing. Is there a particular reason why you want to start with the townhomes, or?
In the design of the phase, we would love to do it all at one time, to be honest, and develop the entire thing, but we can't do so because we talked about there's not enough student capacity right now. The way that it works, because all the public land is next to the townhomes right there, it makes a very good phasing line to do the townhomes in that area, and then run our trunk line, put our sewer down to our lift station, and then secondarily phase the other sections. Just the way that it's designed, being north side and south side, or east and west, however you'd like to call it that way.
So to split them up like a 50-50,
It would not make sense commercially or really be feasible from a development perspective. It might look good on a piece of paper, but not when you actually get out there and start digging.
so that makes me raise the question, on these townhomes, what percentage do you plan on being rental?
We don't have a specific percentage at all. As we all know right now, I mean, homeownership has never been more expensive. You know, we have programs for some of our developments that allows people that couldn't afford to buy right now because interest rates are so much to be able to rent, and we actually have those under our own ownership. But at the same time, you know, at the end of the day, we're home builders. We like to sell the property. So when we originally designed this, it was not the intent to do either all for sale or all for rent. It was just a mere fact we wanted to be able to serve citizens and people, and whether it started as a rental and then went to a for sale product or the other way around, it was there as an inherent right.
So if you're wanting to do the either or, would you be willing to work with us on signing something up that says only X% will be rental?
I don't know if we would right now, because when we went through this individual and did the underwriting and the zoning, we always had that ability. So it would be like adding a further encumbrance on that right now, especially with as much as we've done, with this project to work with the city and dedicate land and fire and civic and all that kind of stuff. It would be asking a lot.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
How many, townhouses was that you want to start off with?
The total would be 400 in the townhouse side. So I believe right now, there's only 250 taps that are available, so we're still waiting to figure all that stuff out.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about is, do we have capacity for that
Sure.
as well? And so you're working with whom on that?
I think we're working with, our engineer is working on it, and I believe Jerry and Jennifer have been working together.
Or Jerry Hood?
Jerry Hood?
Yeah, Jerry Hood.
Sorry.
Or Jerry, like, I'm confused.
Also, I wanted to ask you about, the light. Assuming GDOT says yes, that's the right thing. Are you putting, is your plan to put that in during your phase one?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, whenever the front boulevard will be coming in, and we're having to do all the right-of-way improvements along 53, it would make the most sense to do it then. And GDOT really kind of tells you when to do that kind of stuff.
I know.
Not the other way
I
around.
know. They do drive the
Yes, ma'am.
train, that's for sure. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
David, do you have an idea of roughly, going in what the cost would be to a homeowner, like you said, a new homeowner for one of those townhomes?
Yeah, I mean, so it's hard. I mean, as you look all around, property
Sure.
values are increasing significantly. Our initial budget, we did this 2 years ago, was around $350,000 for those homes. I'll bet we're probably closer by the time we actually talk about doing this to $380,000 to $400,000 number.
And right now, the interest rate's what, around 7?
7.5, unfortunately, recently.
Yeah, and you-
Just ticked back up.
Can you buy it down at all?
We do for a lot of ours, and again, we're talking about a couple of years ahead, so we don't know what's gonna happen at that
Sure.
point in time, but I will tell you that right now, we have those programs for some of our developments. Yes, sir.
And when you keep on saying the program, are they kind of like a lease-to-own
No,
type?
when I say the program, meaning that we have the ability to buy it down, one of our promotions is we'll buy it down to 4.75% fixed. for some of
Okay.
Our existing developments.
And, the out parcels, you have about 40,000 square feet. Do you have an idea of what type of?
We're residential home builders. That's
I know you
part
are.
of our- If you know of a commercial guy, you let me know.
Okay, fair enough.
I did have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall if the light, that was agreed to has a flock camera on it?
No, ma'am, that's definitely a technical flock camera.
Okay. It's, Evan, Officer Evan, do you want to define a flock camera to these two gentlemen? I mean, I know what it does, but it'll be my terminology versus a police officer's.
maybe crowd suppression and finding people. Staff's a motor vehicle, it's a tactic, license plate reader, and it is managed by law enforcement, it's something that the city and developers do together. We have private cameras that go on subdivisions, we have, public ones, and they're amazing. I mean, they're everywhere now, and they're getting more and more popular, and they're a great tool to have to find, especially last time. I mean, Brazelton had an armed robbery today. He unfortunately didn't have enough information to get what we needed on the spot, so we have a black car, but with any kind of partial information, partial tagging.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we certainly support law enforcement. My parents live in Deer Creek, so,
Oh.
it's important for me too.
Got some Deer Creek folks in the room tonight,
Yes, there are.
actually.
And so, yeah, anything that we could do, obviously we'll talk to them, but I don't think that we would have an issue with
I
development.
think
of this size.
you're probably aware, you may be aware, you've heard it a couple of times tonight, about the traffic on 53. And along with that traffic comes a lot of trucks and speeders. So maybe we should consider, or maybe we could have you consider, it reads the speed and
Whatever the block camera is.
it just go ahead and
sorry, I mean, I'm not about issuing people tickets, but if we're gonna have a walkable city, we're gonna need this traffic to slow down, and that way, our only currently 3 officers could be doing stuff that they should be doing instead of looking for speeders. So anyway, if you would
Yes.
consider that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, and we'll instruct our engineers to work with GDOT in regards to both of those.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 5, Resolution 2024 dash 18. Actually, I am gonna do all 3 of them at the same time. Resolution 2024 dash 19 and Resolution 2024 dash 20. These are IGAs, intergovernmental agreements, between the city of Hushin and the DDA for, in this particular order, for dash 18 is the Garden, for dash 19 is Putters Golf Carts, and for dash 20 is Pasta Masters. Council, any questions? Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Ab now. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If anyone wishes to address the mayor and council this evening, please raise your hand and I'll call you up. Seeing no hands, I'll turn it back over to you.
I'm shocked, sorry. Wait, I'm really shocked. Thank you, Ab. We are, I do need to, I'd like to, we need to go into executive, so, if I could have a motion to go into executive?
For litigation and real estate.
Yes, for what he said. Thank you, Dave. Second, please?
Second.
All in favor of going into executive for litigation and real estate? Thank you. For those of you that are here, if you could just please stay seated while we, leave the room, that'd be great.
Can't get in, can't get in all. Evan, how you doing, buddy?
Yes. Like giant blocks. I've Googled all. It's really bad. It's deep in state.
And I'm not trying to take credit for some brilliant idea, it's just all I'm doing is, I know the history of the planning profession, and I've studied this, and I've taught stuff, and I just know that that's the thing. And why does everybody feel entitled to
And that's the word.
wreck your whole
Yes.
network,
Yes.
and that we deserve to be able to build, and, but we don't have to internalize any of the costs, that's just my life.
That's right.
So I'm pushing it, like, excellent,
Okay. All right. So I told her I would do that.
that's great.
Okay. I think we'd be great.
And you are,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right, so you're representing, you're also representing.
Yes. Yes.
Good.
Well, we'll do that. You'll be a part of that too, won't you?
Probably not.
Oh, okay.
I think when they get around to the transportation plan, that they'll have like a technical committee, they'll put it in that.
Okay.
And I'm gonna make sure that I go to this.
Yes.
Regardless.
Okay.
They need to make sure that I put this in
Okay.
There's one project that will be more than the whole county with these traffic congestion. You may not know about it, but you know where 129 business comes out of
Yeah.
129,
Yeah.
they're about a mile south of
Yeah.
95. You got Hog Mountain Road, that
Mhm.
goes to the right.
Mhm.
Well, that intersection there at 129 Hog Mountain is one of the worst places to have. And all you gotta do is open back up a bridge across Possum Creek, and you can bypass, you can go from Jefferson, never get on the bypass, and build that road up a little bit, widen the bridge, and you're connecting the Possum Creek Road that there is in the Hog Mountain Road to Valentine Industrial Parkway. You got, you could take an estimated 20, 30, 40% of the traffic out of this intersection by building that. And it's 10 to 20, but the county, for whatever reason, is sort of, I talked to speaking to Jamie, I talked to her about it, and she goes, yeah, it's kind of political, a little bit. Anyway, I don't really know, I think maybe sheriff's staff, or something like that. I don't really know, but it's a good project of that sort. Sometimes you don't have to be traffic engineer to figure something. And besides, even if I'm not a traffic engineer, like I said, I'm a transportation planner, and
But we know why that was brought up. I mean, that, so it's just like, really, you're embarrassing yourself, Jerry. I mean, really, you're gonna bring that? All right, I'm gonna go ahead then.
All right.
Look over the weekend.
See you on the 22nd?
Yes.
Sure. I'm working hard on that.
Okay.
I'm glad I got by this. I haven't been working hard.
Right. Well, if there's anything I can do in between then, let me know.
I will, I'll be as ready as I can. We'll see. I'm looking at it as an opportunity that we have people that legitimately may offer us some significant.
Yes, yes, I am too.
And
I'm looking forward
I'm
to it.
hoping to have.
Okay.
some.
All right. See you, Jerry.
Okay.
All right, ladies, it's good seeing y'all again.
Same here, yeah, thanks a lot, yeah.
Honestly, I'm stressed about it because it's like, it could be hard to have part-time, to be able to service. Yeah, in the long run, it'll help a lot. It's just, part-time. It just doesn't sound like it's part-time and then part-time for others too.
Talk about blank land, you know, that.
Talking about this?
Blank land.
Did I use that term? It's not the most artful
No, but it
term.
makes Chief Ben Stevens said the same exact thing.
Because, well, Carol
Opportunistic.
Carol Dan wrote and quoted me on that, and I thought it was in the paper for the future. I wish I had. It makes it sound a little vulgar, but that's what I said, instead. But Carol made the point, it's like, no, this is the Centennial Farm. And I actually wrote it back and I said, you may know this, you may not, but I didn't recommend that project. And only then, once they wrecked the land plan, that part, then you gotta suck it up and try to figure it sometime.
And the city was built.
Yeah. I never would have thought, I thought this was the one that was tricky, would be the one that had trouble with me. And it turned out to be the other African like this. Turned out to be
That's between the fourth and fastest growing and fastest county in the country.
And we're so much faster than the rest of it, that it's just crazy. I've never seen, development this fast.
Marty Clark introduced himself to me, that, we'll be going out to Jackson Park for his
I mean, I was working for them for a while. If they had sewer in their downtown, that place would be hot. No, they got almost nothing.
Everyone on the rail line, so they just missed that.
Yeah. were like nothing compared to what they were. I mean, even here, this has had 1,000 units in 2020. And now, I don't even remember what number I've got it here somewhere. Probably quadruple. Yeah, so it's doubled the unit. This is just, it's scary, bro. I mean, a little town like Richmond, can't do it without like major growth. You're gonna wind up doing some of it wrong. I told Eric, I said, miles away, driving Jefferson, Nickel. Yeah, yeah, that's a nice road, nice road. Well, it is, that's not like any other way, you know, pretty property, like, and my things driving around and what activity gets years ago. In another 15, 20. That's what all I think, first, we got to take it down, more fun, drive down 211, go around the mountain, go all that around there. All that, and go out to 53, and keep it for 10 years. All the change, not it. It's all for sale. That's all. Yeah, I ate before I got in here, because I knew I was yeah, so I waited out, didn't do lunch, and I said, lunch is Thursday, like, 4 o'clock. So I do it. That's early bird. Yeah. That's good, that's a good meal. We had early bird, special kind of winder. Okay. That's one of the best foods. Happy hour, special down there. I got America's store just one of my clients. I went down there and that's the best place in town to eat down there. They've got. Stay for Windsor? Yeah, yeah, I'm not down there. That's such a cool place. And the city is right next door, so you get done there and you walk across the street and I'm there on that way. Good to see you. Yeah. Maybe. On the left, way down on the left, hole in the wall. Really, really good? Just most of it. All right. Do you remember the name? I'll ask the planner, I'll ask the building guy that. I know that the folks up front working the window. Yeah, they'll say? They'll say, yeah, it's right there. Oh, good, it's right, just walking distance. Very much so. All right. Okay. Yeah.
Dirt floor, sand, sheet, astroturf, air conditioning. Farm.
Sherry, thank you so much for all that you do, and all the details and everything else.
You're welcome.
I just love it. I just love it. Absolutely. It's amazing. How do you remember all this stuff?
Yeah, my memory's been lost, on a daily basis. It seems like, as you get older, kind of like,
Wow.
well, thank you.
Yeah. It would be great, I think, on the Kennerly property, if they could, in some way, they could have a rental. I can guarantee, that we can reduce the rental, because right across the way, they have all those equipment. Those are all rentals.
Yeah,
And I don't think they're gonna be vacant.
we learned that, like, the big townhouse section of Twin Lakes, they never told us or anything, and we heard that they had sold, I don't know how many units, but it's hundreds. They sold out to build the rent boats, so that's what they're gonna be. Nothing we can really do. We're trying, we're considering what we can do. Thank you, appreciate that.
Bye-bye.
Man, hey, it's still, they're going randomly. Okay, I got a call. Everything is all right.
Oh, Lord.